I'm going to wait for it to make sure that it's recording, and then we're going to get started. So if you're just joining us, make sure that you go to the chat and that you click on the link that I'm posting, and then you pick one of the slides on that slideshow that says a group number, and you just go to that slide. Go to whichever slide that you want to be in the group on. You get to choose your own groups today. I am posting the link in the chat. Leland, are you keeping up with the attendance for me, bud? Let's make sure we keep up with that attendance. I can get on there, but yeah, he'll come back. He's usually pretty good at it. You got it too, Mr. Petrie. So I am going to put in the link in the chat. Everybody needs to go to the link, and you need to pick a slide that has a group number on it. The only rule is you can't have more than 4 people in your group. The first slide that says learning target is not a group. It'll say highlighted yellow at the bottom of the slide. It'll say group 1, group 2, group 3, or group 4. It looks like group 4 has 4 people in it already, and group 2 has 4 people in it already. So either pick group 1 or group 3. Let's not move around a bunch. But yeah, let it rest there. And if I see that we need more people in those groups, then so be it, we can.
Mr. Kickler, I'll like you to keep posting when somebody new comes on, and then you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Petrie. That's extremely helpful. All right. Thank you all for being here. Man, we have got quite a group here for the social studies lesson. We might be breaking a record. That's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. There we go. Leland, are you taking attendance for me? Yeah. Man. Ellie apparently wants to say hey as well. I don't know if you guys heard that, but she is hollering. So I want to go around first, and we got to do a really quick check-in, okay? And today I'm going to give you a chance to share your temperature. What is your temperature, 1 through 5? And then after you share your temperature, I want you to tell me, what do you prefer? Do you prefer shoes or no shoes? And flip-flops and sandals, that counts as no shoes, okay? So shoes and socks or no shoes, what feels better to you? So I'm going to go first. I'm a 1, and I would go barefoot every single day of the week if it was warm enough and nice enough to do so. The first person I'm going to come to and ask that question to on my list today is Skander. Skander, what's your temperature and what do you prefer, shoes or no shoes?
My temperature's a 1 and I prefer shoes.
Awesome. Taylor, you're next on my list. What is your temperature and what do you prefer?
My temperature is 1 and I prefer shoes.
All right. Man, are you guys from Kentucky? I'm just messing with you. Don, you're next on my screen. What is your temperature and what do you prefer, shoes or sandals? Shoes or flip-flops? Let's put it that way. Shoes or flip-flops?
Shoes.
Shoes, all right. Leland, you're next on my list. What do you prefer, shoes or flip-flops?
Shoes.
What's your temp?
1.
You look good, man. That haircut looks really nice. Did you right? Did somebody in your house do it? That's cool. All right, Sama, you're next on my list. What is your temperature and what do you prefer, shoes or flip-flops?
My temperature is a 1 and I prefer shoes.
All right. Natalia, you're next on my list. What is your temperature and what do you prefer, shoes or flip-flops?
My temperature is a 2 and I prefer shoes.
Okay. Maya, let everybody know her birthday is tomorrow, and she is totally okay if you want to get on Roblox and get on Adopt Me and get her a new pet as a birthday present. Just putting that out there. Maya, what's your temperature and what do you prefer, shoes or sandals?
My temperature is a 1 and shoes.
Okay. Miguel, you're next on my list. What's your temperature and what do you prefer?
My temperature is a 2 and I prefer shoes.
All right, I hear you. Emily, what's your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 2 and I prefer sandals.
Shoes are
Thank you
uncomfortable.
so much, Emily. I have another person that like me. All of a sudden, I was feeling like all left out. I thought there was nobody like me. Josh, what is your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 2 and I prefer shoes.
Awesome. Oh, my whole screen just moved around. Okay, so the next person I'm going to check in with is Clem. What's your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 2 and shoes.
2 and shoes. Callie, what's your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 1. I prefer sandals.
Oh, yes, another sandals person. Okay, Miss Petrie, you're next. What's your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 1 and I definitely prefer flip flops.
Miguel, you're next. What's your temperature and what do you prefer?
Wait, didn't I already say?
Oh, sorry, my bad. My screen moved around on me. Eddie, you're next. What's your temperature and what do you prefer? Eddie, are you there?
Well, my temperature is 3, and I prefer shoes.
All right, sounds good. Deshaun, you're next. What's your temperature and what do you prefer?
My temperature is a 1 and I prefer shoes.
Sweet. Annette, what's your temperature and what do you prefer?
My temperature is a 1, and like, if I stay at home, then I'd prefer sandals. But if I go outside, I'd prefer shoes.
Ah, okay. Aditya, you are the last person on my list, sir. What is your temperature and what do you prefer?
I'm a 3, and what I would prefer is sandals.
I hear you, buddy. Me too. Did I miss anyone? Speak now or forever leave your mute button on. Okay, cool. That's going to take us to the next part of our lesson. So moving past that, today we are going to be talking about slavery and the Underground Railroad during the time of the Civil War. Okay, the last time we were together, we talked about the Civil War. I kind of gave you like a vast overview of what the Civil War was. Today, we're going to go a little bit, we're going to focus in a little bit, and we're going to look at the slavery and the Underground Railroad part of the Civil War. So I asked you to do a reading, okay? And I'm just going to very briefly talk about this reading. I'm going to share my screen here with you guys, and I'm going to probably just leave it shared after I share it. That helps with the video. There we go. Share my screen. I'm going to very quickly go through this article. This article is a lot about slavery and what it was in the South. And then our slideshow has information that is more about slavery and the Underground Railroad. So this is the article that I asked your teachers to send out to you. Hold on just 1 second. We get her. So this is called Slavery in the South, and it talks about how slavery was one of the biggest differences between the North and the South. The North and the South were the two opposing sides that fought against each other in the Civil War. And if you remember from our last lesson, a civil war is when one country goes against itself. So we had people who lived in the northern part of our country who felt differently from people who lived in the southern part of our country. We talked last week about how those differences in their economies and the way that their economies ran made them be like really kind of different people. In the South, they had a lot of big farms called plantations. And on these plantations, they grew lots and lots of food. And we have to remember, they didn't have tractors and machines like we have these days to do the work for us. So unfortunately, what they decided to do was they decided to enslave people and to force those people to work on these large farms called plantations. So moving more quickly through this, there were African American slaves. They did not have the same rights as free white people. They were not allowed to vote, own property, and they suffered greatly from discrimination. They were treated like property. They were treated as if they were a cow or a horse or even like a rain barrel that the farmer used. They were treated as something that was to be used, and when it didn't have a use anymore, often they would be sold or gotten rid of. When they were sold, plantation owners could buy and sell them, and they often split up families, selling children, not selling the children's parents, and then separating those families. It was a very shameful part of our history. They had these things called slave codes that made life really difficult for slaves. It was a set of laws. They were called slave codes, and they were made to simply control the behavior of slaves. They made it illegal for slaves to own property. They made it illegal for slaves to go to stores and buy and sell things. They also made it illegal for a slave to defend themselves. Even if they were getting whipped by a white person, it was illegal for them to hit that white person. And then that is pretty much the end of the article that I had you guys read ahead of time. If you will now go over to the Slavery and the Underground Railroad slideshow, I would like for you to go to that. And I'm looking and I see that we have, how many total people? We have 12 total people in this slideshow. So the link is in the chat. If you'll click on that link and get over there and then pick a slide. It's got to say group 1, group 2, group 3, or group 4. And that is what group you are going to be in while we're doing this. So that's what you're going to respond to. I see we have 4 people in group 1. That is perfect. You guys just sit tight. Don't change anything on your slide. Don't add anything to your slide. Just get to that slide. Deshaun, I see you're at the last slide. If you'll go up to a group, that way we can get started. So I'm going to go ahead and give the directions for the people who are where they should be and looking at the slide that they should be looking at. So you are going to go to, if you're in a group, you are going to become an expert on the slide that is before your slide. So if your slide is group 1 slide, you're going to go to the previous slide and you're going to read all about what's on that slide. It says Underground Railroad written in red on that slide. Group 1, will you go ahead and click back a slide, that slide, so that you can be where you need to be to read what you need to read in order to answer the question or to define the terms on the next one. So you guys are going to read that slide, become experts, then you're going to go to the slide with your group number on it, and there will be one of 2 things. There will either be a word or a phrase that is underlined. That means you need to define that word or phrase. And you will be able to define it based upon the words that are on the slide before yours. You will also, some groups just have questions to answer about the slide before it. So I am going to allow for 10 minutes, and I'm going to be checking in on this constantly. And if we get to the point where we're all just sitting there waiting for the 10 minutes to end, then I'll go ahead and call it. But for right now, I'm going to give us 10 minutes. So at 11:57, we're going to call it back together no matter what. So I need you to go to your slide, read the slide before yours, and then go to the next slide. And as a group, I want you to answer the questions or define the terms. So you can go ahead and start doing that now. And I already see group 2, you guys are all on the slide that you need to be on, reading what you need to read. Good job. So go ahead and do that, and I'll be looking at the Google Meet. If you have problems or questions, unmute yourself, and we will try to talk it out and figure out how we can get you where you need to be. Skander, do you see the link? Are you able to click on the link? Skander, are you there, bud? Hold on, Emily, I'll get to you. Let me see if, okay, so Skander, can you click on the link and get to the slideshow? You're unmuted, Skander, so you could just talk.
Yeah, I can't get on there for it. It keeps on taking me back.
So when you click on the link, it takes you back where?
Back to the meet.
Back to the main screen?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find you.
What?
Oh, it
Are you
says you're
on-
in here.
Yeah.
It does. I can't see.
Yeah, it
myself.
says that you're in here and you are on. What slide are you on? Well, that's odd. It says up in the top that you're part of the viewers, but then it doesn't show me which slide you're on. So maybe you're not one of the viewers, but it says you're a viewer right there. Show me,
It says I'm-
Skander.
It says I'm in, but it says I'm not at the same time.
I know it's weird on my screen too. Like up at the top where it shows me all the viewers, it says you're one of the viewers, but then it should show me where all the viewers are over to the left, and I can't find you. Why don't you, will you do me a favor and close out the tab that you have that's signed into
I'm in
the
now.
Google slide?
I'm in.
Oh, you're in? You're good?
Yeah, I'm in now.
Awesome. Still not seeing it. Okay, cool. And you're good. Oh, I see you down. Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Emily, you had a question.
No, I'm good. I solved it.
You good? You figured it out. Sweet. Hey, Alexandra.
Mr.
Did,
Kickoff, what group am I in?
You can be in whatever group you want to be in. It's a day that you get to choose your group. Why don't you be in the group with Deshaun? He looked like he was in a group by himself. We need somebody to do group 3. Deshaun, will you and Skander be in group 3? Because I got a lot of people in that group too. That will be super helpful. Skander, will you be in group 3 and do that one? I see a lot of people already filling out, putting words into their slides. That is awesome. It looks good, and I appreciate you guys. You guys are doing great. We got about 6 minutes left until I'm going to have to definitely pull us back together. Until then, I'll keep Alexandra. Here's a link to the slideshow in the chat. Oh, Mesquite, gotcha. I just had to scroll down. And we're just picking whatever group we want, Alexandra. Let's try to pick a group that needs people. So group 1 does not need people. Group 2 does not really need people. Group 3 needs people. Group 4 is already almost done with their slides, so don't go to group 4. Go to group 3. Those guys, they could use some help. I would really appreciate that one too, because that's one that I really want to talk about. That question: what do you think Harriet Tubman's personality was like? I want to have a conversation about that. About 5 minutes left. I'm still watching, and if we all get done before then we'll come back together.
I'm so impressed with all the work on the slideshow.
I love it. It's great. I think I finally figured out, how to do this. On Monday, it was good, and I had people looking. Right. I wasn't able to, so then I went in and added the questions and stuff on the slides.
Yeah,
a blank slide, I think, just doesn't do well.
Yeah, but it's nice to see that for sure.
Don't erase other people's words, just so you know. I see on group 1, I see like 4 different tabs. So what you want to do is you want to click down so that you're typing in your own space. And you can type what you want to type and then compare it to each other's, right? But you don't want to type on the same line. That's just something that we have to learn so that we can figure out how to be better, to be more, it's like stepping on somebody's toes, right? We don't want to step on people's toes. So just go down to another line. Yeah, you'll have to go to the end and hit enter. And that'll take your cursor down to a different space where you can write without writing over somebody's words. I love how eager you guys are in group 1. That's really awesome. Remember, I'm in the meeting. And guys in group 3, both of those questions are really kind of like opinion questions. So there's no real wrong answer. So don't feel like you have to go back and find that answer in the text. I just want you to use what you read in the text to help you make a guess at what you think about those people, okay? All right, group 4, you're done. Nice job. We've got about 3 more minutes, so if you're not writing yet, which I don't think that applies to anybody, we got about 3 more minutes. 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back together. Looks like we're all almost done. I see some people communicating to each other through the writing. That is just fantastic. That's really good practice. Group 3, you want somebody from another group to come up and help you out a little bit in these last 2 minutes? If you feel so inclined to go help group 3 and you're done with your group work, you can click down there and look. Now, don't go all willy-nilly crazy. We don't want everybody going there at once, but you can help. I see Deshawn's typing over there. Nice job. About 1 minute, and then we're going to come back together. Group 4 or group 3, don't be super anxious about it. We can all answer those questions too, okay? Uh-oh, uh-oh. Somebody deleted a whole slide. Stop. Everybody stop. Oh, nice job, group 1. Nice job. Everybody can go back. You can start again. Whew. That was close. Okay, it is 11:57. If everyone will please stop typing. It is not a huge deal if you guys didn't get done with your slide, which I think everybody got done. But it's not a huge deal if you missed a question or you didn't get to answer a question. Don't worry about that. So I am going to go back to the beginning. I would like for you to not change things on the slide while I do the presentation part of it. I am actually going to present this, and I think that'll make it bigger on your screen as well. And then I'm going to go through it and see, basically, this is the meat of our lesson, okay? So our learning targets for today are, I can describe slavery in the South. So you want to be able, at the end of this, we want to be able to describe slavery in the South. And we also want to be able to explain what the Underground Railroad was. And if we go to the next slide over here, it reads, one way that slaves attempted to escape from their plantations to freedom was through a system called the Underground Railroad. It also says the Underground Railroad was not an actual railroad. It was not a railroad. It was a secret pathway that slaves would follow, leading them out of slave states and into free land. People who led slaves along the route were called conductors. Hideouts and homes where slaves would stay along the way were called stations. Slaves would follow the North Star to guide them. The Underground Railroad ran from around 1810 to the 1860s. It is estimated that over 100,000 slaves escaped to freedom during this time. And then we have this slide over here that Group 1 filled out. And I said, please define the following terms. And they said the Underground Railroad was a passage that slaves used to escape and be free. Absolutely. I think it is also important to include in this slide that it was not an actual railroad. There was not a train. There was no train. The Underground Railroad is just a term to describe the passage going north. They also put that slaves have to follow a pathway. Now, it wasn't a clear path. It wasn't like they went out and it said, this is the Underground Railroad, follow this to freedom. They had to have conductors that would lead them on that pathway. And they very correctly said that a conductor is a person that leads the slaves. And I would add to this that a conductor is a person that leads the slaves on the Underground Railroad, okay? A station is where a place where the slaves hid and rested, yes. Sometimes there were up to 10 to 20 miles between these stations. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. What were the stations like? Slaves would stay in secret rooms, underneath stairs, and in barns on the Underground Railroad. The stations were usually 10 to 20 miles apart. Slaves would have to travel at night in hopes not to get caught. They would wait at one station until the next one was ready for them. And I do want to point out also, this was a time before cars were invented. You couldn't ride in a car. It wasn't a thing. And the stations were 10 to 20 miles apart. And I don't know if you've ever walked 10 miles or not, but I have. And I'm going to tell you, it hurts. It hurts really bad. Your feet hurt, and it is not a pleasant journey. And most of these people did that for day after day, week after week, month after month. They would walk 10 to 20 miles a day in order to get freedom. So group 2 answered these questions. I said, name a few structures that could have been used as stations. And they said secret rooms underneath stairs, barns on the Underground Railroad. And I think we need to keep in mind that the Underground Railroad is not an actual railroad. There are not real trains that go on this or that went on this. My other question was, what do you think some of the hardships of traveling in this way might be? And they put, I think some of the hardships of traveling would be trying not to get caught and not making it to the north. Yes, trying not to get caught, because if they got caught, guess what? They got sent right back to the plantation where they were a slave. A lot of times there was a punishment that they had to go through because they had to escape. I think some of the hardships traveling would be traveling 10 to 20 miles. Yes, that's what I was talking about earlier. That is definitely a hardship. Who were the conductors? Conductors or leaders of the Underground Railroad were people from various backgrounds. Some conductors were people who were once slaves themselves, while others were free white people who believed that slavery was wrong. Both the slaves and the conductors risked their lives to be a part of the Underground Railroad. One of the most famous conductors was Harriet Tubman. That is her picture there on this slide. She was born into slavery in Maryland around 1820. At age 28, she escaped to Philadelphia, traveling on the Underground Railroad. Although she gained her freedom, she returned to the South again and again to help other slaves. During the Civil War, she served as a nurse and continued to fight to end slavery. She died in 1913. Now, think about that. This woman escaped to freedom. She could have stayed in the North and lived her life for the rest of her life without fear of being caught and returned to slavery. And instead of making that choice, she chose to go back down south to help free other people. That's amazing. That's quite amazing. So these are my questions here. What do you think why do you think people became conductors? And what do you think Harriet Tubman's personality was like? And I'm going to come back to this slide, okay? Because I know group 3, you only had 2 people in your group and you didn't really have enough time by the time I had you there. So don't worry about that at all. We're going to come back to that. The last slide that I have here, it says, what was an abolitionist? And it says, during this time in history, people had different views on slavery. Most Southerners wanted to keep slavery. Many people in the North wanted to abolish or get rid of slavery. A person who wanted to get rid of slavery was called an abolitionist. And then this is one of the questions I asked on the following slide. that says, which of these posters would have been made by an abolitionist? And I saw that they said earlier, they said they think it's this poster here on the left that says anti-slavery meetings. And they said they think it's this one because anti means against. And you are absolutely right. The other thing I asked them to do was to define abolitionist, and that is indeed a person that wanted to get rid of slavery. That takes us to the end of our lesson that says, our summary says, slaves lived on plantations, which were big farms, and were forced to complete hard labor. Slave codes were enforced to control slave behavior. Slave codes, that's what those were called. And also, slaves rebelled by secretly traveling on the Underground Railroad, and that was not an actual railroad, but a path that they were led by conductors or people who took them to different stations that eventually got them to the north. Now I'm going to escape out of my full screen mode. I am going to go back to these questions. Why do you think people became conductors? And what do you think Harriet Tubman's personality was like? And group 3 got this in there. It says because they became conductors because they don't believe slavery should be a thing. If they don't believe slavery should be a thing, what do we call those people? And you can unmute yourself and tell me. If they don't believe slavery should be a thing, they think it should go away and we should get rid of it. What do we call that person?
Abolitionist.
Abolitionist, Taylor, ding, ding, ding. If we were in real life, I would have just thrown a piece of candy at you. Or wait, no. I would have thrown a healthy snack at you that you would have liked very much. Maybe an orange or a tangerine. Anyways, I'm getting off. So that brings us back. I am going to allow that to be our closing question. So what do you think Harriet Tubman's personality was like? What do you think Harriet Tubman's personality was like? And if you unmute yourself, that's like you raising your hand, and I'll call on you. I'm going to do this for the next 4 minutes, and then I am going to officially close the lesson, stop the recording, and then instruct you guys to go and fill out the exit slip that I've prepared for this lesson. So, would anyone like to share? Taylor, it looks like you've unmuted yourself. Taylor, what do you think Harriet Tubman's personality might have been like?
I think she was very brave.
I missed the end of your sentence. Do you think
I think she was very brave.
Brave. That is an incredible character trait. I'm going to keep actually, you know what, Deshawn, do you think that you could hit the enter key on that side and record what people say, just like the one-word character traits that people are using? So if you'll go into this one and then come down here and like, I'm going to put just brave like that, and then I'll hit enter. Okay, will you go down where my cursor is and keep those notes for me? So who else? I saw Natalia had herself unmuted. Natalia, what do you think?
Unselfish.
Unselfish. Yes, she was unselfish. Skander, what do you think?
Brave.
Brave. Definitely was a brave woman. You got to be brave to go back to somewhere where people want to kill you. Because trust me, people wanted to kill her. Anybody else want to share out? Do you think that Harriet Tubman was like the type of personality that's like, okay? Do you think she was like that? Do you think she was goofy at all? I see some people shaking their heads. No, I don't think you can be a goofy person in that kind of role. You think maybe she might have been a little bit stern with people at times? I think she might have been stern. I see that, Taylor, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to share?
I think she was also selfless of herself. She's like
Selfless. And you've got really good words. Selfless. Let's make sure we get selfless put on that list of character traits for Harriet Tubman. Yes. Anybody else with a character trait? So far we've got brave. Let me look over here. We've got brave. We've got selfless. Oh no, we don't have anybody doing it. I got courageous up there. Brave. I'm going to put selfless in there. Any others? Not selfish. Hey, Sean, she wasn't selfish. She was the opposite of selfish. She was selfless.
Outgoing?
All right, anybody else? I'm looking for unmuted stuff. Natalia, you're unmuted again. Did you want to share again?
Outgoing.
Outgoing. Okay, maybe she was outgoing. Yes. We've got about 1 minute left. Anybody else want to share? Okay. Well, I will go ahead and say that real quick. Let me say it again. If you haven't read the Slavery in the South article, go back and read that before you do the exit slip. If you have, good job. I need you to know that these are the takeaways, okay? This lesson summary right here, that's the takeaways from this lesson. Slaves lived on plantation farms and were forced to complete hard labor. Slave codes were enforced to control slave behavior, and slaves rebelled by secretly traveling on the Underground Railroad. So if you have been here for this entire lesson, if you've taken part in this lesson, I would like for you to, when you leave here, if you'll go back to your own Google Classroom, and there should be an assignment under your classwork tab that will be a Slavery and the Underground Railroad exit slip. You are totally prepared to go ahead and do that. If you're having trouble accessing it, just pop back in here and let me know. Other than that, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you taking part in this lesson. And we will see you again next Monday for the next lesson. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Mr. K-Letter.
Bye, Mr.